Hello, hair metal revolution, where we're taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves. Now, saying that sounds kind of weird, right? Because the title is The 5 Worst Singers. I have my guest, Jeff Harding, who himself was a musician, played in a band. So I thought this would be interesting to see his point of view versus my point of view. And the rules are, there are no rules. I didn't tell him how I'm picking my 5, and I don't know how he's picking his 5. So how we're going to start is I'll say my 5, and he'll say his 5, and we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, when I start with my 5, I'll start first, and I'll explain how I'm picking my 5. I have to see these bands live. That has to be a rule for me. If I see them live, if I haven't seen them live, then I can't put them on my list, because anybody can find a bad clip and play it on YouTube, the social media, and everybody thinks it's shit. I have to see the musician live, and it's more of me as a shock value, like wow, he doesn't sound like the album. So this is more of seeing them live and what 5 singers kind of shocked me the most on, doesn't sound like the album. So with that, we're just going to get right into it. I'm going to start with my number 5. And Jeff, my number 5 is Ozzy Osbourne. And now, again, I'm 51 years old, so I started listening to metal, rock and roll, when I was really in 1983, 84, when I was 10 to 11. So I don't know how Ozzy sang with Black Sabbath. I don't know. And I don't know how he sang in his early days. I saw Ozzy on an Ozfest in like the 2000s. So did his voice change? Could have. I don't know. But when I saw Ozzy, I'm like, man, he can't hit those notes. He's like live-wise, he's like one-dimensional. You know, even though he's not known for high harmonies in his music in the first place, but I was just shocked that, like, he really does not sound like the album. Yeah, you can tell it's Ozzy, but I was just shocked that he couldn't really hit any of the like the bars like most other singers can. So that's my number 5. So Jeff, you can make a comment about my Ozzy, or you can start with yours.
You know what? I will say this, okay? There's a couple things that are going to blow you away. First, I'm not. When I pick the worst, I don't know that I'm picking the worst of all time. What I'm looking at is who is the most overrated that did not earn the fame that they held because their vocals were not there. They were subpar, okay?
That's fine.
And I could show you this list right now, but I don't want to blow my other 4 picks. But number 5, I have Ozzy Osbourne.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. Dead serious. I just, and I think here's what I stumble on with Ozzy. When I think of vocalists that I'm not really that keen on their vocals overall, I can find a couple songs where you hear them singing, you're like, man, that's really not that bad at all. That's pretty good. But I mean, even the stuff where he was doing the duets, kind of trying to do the power ballad thing.
With Lita Ford, yep.
He was average at best with his vocals, man. I mean, I'm not saying that his style wasn't him, and that's what people liked, right? You fell in love with the madman who would stand next to Randy Rhoads after he snorted a couple lines of freaking whatever, and he's out there losing his mind, and he had a voice that would hold its own for what he was doing. But he wasn't there because he was a great vocalist.
No. And for the record, people, we're not saying they made bad albums.
No.
That's what the shocker is. We like the albums.
I could turn around and maybe put Crazy Train in my top 25 metal songs of all time. Well, even though I don't think he's that great of a vocalist. You know what I mean?
That is so cool that we got number 5 with Ozzy. Now, of course, my number 4, I'm sure you don't you probably don't have him on your list. But go to number 4. Now, this guy mostly came in the 90s. This is not really, this guy I'm talking about is not really considered in the hair metal stuff, but we're talking about music. I'm talking about the first time I went and saw Red Hot Chili Peppers. When I saw that the singer Anthony Kiedis, he did not sound like the album. I mean, I was like, the shock factor was like, you know, when you hear Sex Magic, you know, how he sings like kind of like rap, that rap style rock and roll, doesn't sound like that live. So I know he's probably not gonna be on most people's list because you think hard rock, heavy metal, you don't think of Anthony Chili Peppers, but he is not a great live singer. He's really not.
Well, and the rest of my 4, I mean, most of them I wouldn't throw into the heavy metal category, really. I mean, they're just famous singers. I didn't limit it by genre, but I would agree with you on that. I mean, and the reason why I would say that is because most bands that were out there in that genre at that time, when you heard them singing or performing live, they were able to reproduce what they did in the studio. I think that was the beginning of the era where when you know, first of all, you're past that point where it was bringing 4 musicians into a studio and letting it buck, right? As a producer, when you had Led Zeppelin in the studio, John Bonham, those guys, you captured what they put down and you didn't mess with it, right? But when you're talking about the Red Hot Chili Peppers, we've reached an area there where you start dealing with synthecated sounds and things that you're producing in the studio. You're altering how stuff sounds. And I think the big thing was a realistic producer did not want to create something in the studio that band could not reproduce live.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the Chili Peppers did that real well. You know?
I agree. I think they kind of covered up his voice kind of with the guitar, playing a little bit louder, like covering it up a little bit. Yeah. I know some shows they did, I didn't see all of it. He would have like sub singers, like women, like kind of like helping out with the vocals. And you could tell when a lot of bands do that. But hey, that was my number 4. What is Jeff's number 4?
My number 4 is really not in the hard rock era, but it is from the 80s. It's Melissa Etheridge.
Oh, interesting. I've never seen her live, so I have no comment.
I think she had a unique voice, but I think that there's a couple people on my list that in their day, maybe for whatever reasons, they caught on. But if you were to put them on America's Got Talent or The Voice right now, they wouldn't turn a chair. They wouldn't even make it past the first round. You know, their voice just was so distinctive, maybe, but what I really like when I look at my favorites list is distinction is awesome. I like a voice that stands out from everybody else's, right? Find that strong suit and leverage it. I just, you know, if that's what she did, it just wasn't my style.
I've never seen her live, so I don't even know. But no, that's fair. That's fair. Now, my number 3 is a little bit more harder type of music. It's not speed metal, but it's, if you want to call it thrash, I don't know. The singer I'm talking about is Dave Mustaine of Megadeth. Now, if people know Dave Mustaine, he was in the beginning was the lead guitar player for Metallica before he got kicked out or he quit. So you could tell when I heard him sing live that he was a lead guitarist, not really a front man. So when he started his own band, he put himself in the front, and he like had to like try to learn how to sing while he was doing it. And if it wasn't that he was doing more thrash, you could really tell that he's not a lead singer. You know what I mean? I mean, he plays so loud and fast, it kind of covers it up. But if you take out the guitar somehow, like these technology you could do, he is not a great singer. So Dave Mustaine is my number 3.
Okay. My number 3 is Neil Young.
Oh, wow. I've never seen him live, so
I never would have handed him a microphone, and nobody ever should have, in my mind. I'm not a Neil Young fan, and that's politics aside. Okay, I realize he's been the last decade. The only time you hear his name is when people are arguing about what he's taking a political stance. So has nothing to do with it. When I look at Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, a lot of talent there. But Neil Young's voice, there's nothing special about it at all. At all. If you really listen to his voice, I'll tell you what, I don't get how that many people laid down at his feet for wanting to hear him. I just don't get it. But
no, I hear you. I mean, I've never seen him live, so I don't know how his voice carries over, but I guarantee you, Jeff, my number 2, I know you've seen this band. I don't know if he's on your list because I know you kind of talked about this singer. Some other video we were on, I think we were on Mog's channel, and we got into the music world. But I love the band's albums. They were one of the first major concerts that I ever seen in my life. But gotta be honest, my number 2 is Stephen Pearcy. I love Rat's music on the albums, but when you hear him live, I saw him, of course, when I was 13. Of course, everything sounded great when it's loud when you're young. But I also saw him on his solo. No, it wasn't solo. He joined a band called Arcade. He created another band, Arcade. That's when I saw when he had Fred Corey on the drums, and he had like a ballad that was on the Arcade album. And when he tried to sing it, it was horrible. Yeah, he cannot hit pitches. He is what you can create in a studio.
I loved everything they put out.
Yes, I love the music.
CD and tape. I loved it. I mean, there's not that many bands that you could buy a CD or a cassette and every song on it was awesome. And they were one of them. I mean, for me, they were one of them. But I agree when you, especially, and I'm not just talking about now that he's at the age he is now. I'm talking about once they'd been out for about 10 years, when he got to be like 40 years old, his voice was gone. I mean, junk. You heard him live, and it's like, dude, what is going on here? Is he? I thought maybe he's sick, or he's
that's his
not
voice.
there. That's the way he is live all the time.
And I feel bad because one of my videos on this channel, I did Dancing in the Cover as a hidden gem. That's like the album that some reason Rat fans like the least, and I love it. And so it's hard for me to put him on there, but I just had to be honest. When I saw him with Arcade, the voice just was not there. Yeah, but again, like you said, when I was younger, 13, he sounded great, but I don't know. Maybe it was my first concert ever. So I was like in the moment. You know what I mean? Like you're in that moment, you don't know. But I'm curious, what is Jeff's number 2? Because I'm loving his list.
I'll tell you what, my number 2 and number 1, people, I'm not going to make any friends here because these are very popular singers that I just don't think their vocal talent deserved the attention they got. And my number 2 is Bob Dylan.
Oh, wow. I never seen him live either. So
great lyricist, great writing. But you talk about, you put him he walks into a room with his guitar in front of frickin' 3 judges at America's Got Talent. He's not getting a ticket, dude. He's not going to Hollywood. I'm sorry. His vocal capability is subpar. And maybe that's what people liked about him. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that kind of works too, is, he's not all perfect and that's why I like him. But I know there's going to be a lot of Bob Dylan fans out there mad, but if you're asking me if he was a good vocalist, my answer is no.
You know, be honest with you, I never really was a Bob Dylan fan. I respected him, but I don't own any of his albums. I don't.
I just challenge people, go on YouTube, search Bob Dylan live, pull up a song, one of the first 3 or 4 returns, and just listen to him and say, pretend I don't know him, pretend I don't recognize his voice. Does he have a good voice or not? Your answer is going to be no, dude. If you're being honest, that he does not have a good voice.
Wow. Now this is going to be now we're going to have so much fun here. Number ones, these are number ones. And again, my number one is just because the shock factor, like I was so hype, and then I hear him sing, and so it's more of the shock factor because this guy is in one of the most beloved bands.
See, I already know who you're going to say. I have a feeling I know who you're going to say.
I'm talking about David Lee Roth.
Oh, no, I had it wrong.
About David Lee Roth of Van Halen. I'm sorry, David Lee Roth cannot sing live. He has only a one kind of voice live. He goes here, no. Goes here, no. He's more of a pimp. Got to dress pimp. Got to do all that. But he is not a good vocalist at all. You probably thought I was going to say Vince Neil, huh?
Yeah.
He was my number 6.
Yeah, no, Vince Neil is one of those guys that in the studio, they made him amazing.
Yes.
Live, he could not keep up, not reproduce what he did. And maybe when they were young, he could. But boy, if you've seen them in the last 15 years or 20 years, you've heard Vince Neil sing? Nothing.
See, the reason I didn't put Vince in my top 5 because I wasn't shocked that he wasn't a great vocalist because I've heard that he never took lessons or practice. He was just a cover singer, so it wasn't a shock. David Lee Roth was shocked.
I've heard really, really early live recordings of Van Halen. I mean, when they were spanking brand new. And you listen to the guitars and Eddie's playing, he's not that good. He's not even in tune, dude. It doesn't sound... That's how early this was, right? And David Lee Roth wasn't that bad singing on that stuff. I think that a lot of their stuff... there's certain songs that I think of that I think, you know what? It worked for him on that song. But I don't think he had a great range.
No.
And I think he kind of was a Nickelback in that
he
always sounded the same, right?
Exactly.
You couldn't get any range out of him.
That's exactly correct. He's only he can only be here. He can only play in the same bar. But I'm so curious because you built the number one you said.
And I just wanted to say, when I think of David Lee Roth, Ain't Talking About Love, that song was made for him.
Oh,
he owns that song. But then you hear other songs and you're like, dude, this is just more of the same, right? There's no...
Oh, exactly. When I heard him sing Dance the Night Away, it's like, oh, man, oh, please stop. But it is what it is. But what is Jeff's number one?
My number one, again, go ahead and put your arrow on the bow and get ready to shoot it at me. But
I'm ready.
My number one is Janis Joplin.
I've never seen her live.
Well, she's more from the 70s, so a lot of these artists that I'm saying when I'm talking about Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, I'm looking at people that achieved superstardom, right? Superstardom. They're icons of their time. And yet when I'm measuring their vocal capability and how they sound, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, So, and that's kind of the way Janis Joplin is for me. Her voice is kind of a nails on a chalkboard feel to me. Now there are vocalists that I enjoy listening to that others may absolutely not. I mean, when I think of like Perry from Jane's Addiction, I love his vocals. Others may hear him sing and be like, dude, that guy, I can't stand listening to him, you know? So maybe that's some of it. It's just she's not my style. But when I look at what she achieved and how many people look at this, and I have read this, a lot of people, when I was kind of curious when I picked her as my number one, you know, is she really that unpopular with that many people? So I started looking, you know, worst singers from the 70s, right? Seeing if people were listing her. A lot of people consider her vocals not good. So, and when you look at the stardom she got, I don't know if that's just because of the whole Woodstock era freedom.
Could be.
That she was kind of that visual poster child of that era, and maybe she just flowed in at the right time. But, you know, if you've never heard her sing before and you pull up a couple YouTube videos of her and listen, give me the honest opinion, is she a good vocalist or not? Most people are going to say, she's not my cup of tea, right? So that's kind of where I put her there, not because I think she's that bad, but because of how big she got, being somewhat subpar in my mind. It's like, how do you get that big with that voice? I don't get it.
No, I can see that. I mean, I was never really into her. I know a couple of her songs, never bought any albums. So I was, you know, of course, my age was more in the mid 80s than the 70s, except there's a few like CCR I like, but
I was too. I'm just, but my genre, when I listen back into the roots of it, I really like that discovery of where music came in the 50s with the Buddy Holly sound, right? With that Elvis sound, with that Jerry Lee Lewis sound of the 50s. How it evolved from the late 50s into the mid 60s, like 7 or 8 years is all. We're jumping into that Led Zeppelin era, right? Like, wow, that was like slingshotted a mile in less than a decade. I'm really intrigued by that because you think of how much did music move from the 80s to the 90s, or the 90s to the 2000s, or was there ever a movement of sound innovation like the late 50s to the late 60s? I don't know if there was, man. That is a big difference in what you're hearing.
I think you're right, because nowadays you almost play almost anything that'll be accepted in a way. But back in those days, that was a major change.
If you would have had a 1968 or 1972 Vietnam era hard rock band walk into a gym in 1957 and start playing, they would have threw them out on their ear, probably would have arrested them. I mean, it's that different. But
this is going to be the best part, people who are ever watching this, because the very next day, you're going to see another video from us of who we feel are the best singers live. So this is awesome. So guys, tell us, do you like our picks? You think are crazy? What's your 5 worst singers? And give an explanation why, because now the way Jeff explained it, I understand where he's coming from. And, you know, mine is more of the shock factor where I had higher expectations and I was let down. So there's different reasons on why these are 5. We're not saying these are like the worst, but there's reasons why they're on our 5. So beyond that, guys, we'll see you on the next video. Rock on. And like I always say on every video, we're taking the music back and giving it the respect that it deserves.